back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with the Road to 56 mod, and we are taking a look at seeing how the new AI is working to see if it improves things. No, this is no longer. Okay, don't know what that's exactly referring to, Toy Jet, but yeah, Ost landed with out the weird O. Okay, doesn't say Cheese Land anymore. Is that somewhere in Norway here? I guess. Oh, well, that's still here. It's still Ost landed here. Oh, they've added the thing. Okay, I hear you. I was reading that wrong. In your opinion, do you think the Flak Towers in Germany were useful, or should they have devised another option for Flak Towers? There's two facets to the question as I see that, and it is an interesting question. One facet is, and those of you maybe were around for earlier episodes or earlier in the stream, talking about the limited applications of steel. Is it better to use the steel that's made in the flak guns and the rounds that they're shooting? Is it better to put those rounds and those guns, the steel in those, to other uses? And literally, of course, like the Flak Towers did have 20mm guns on them as well, of course, and 37mm guns, as well as the bigger 88s and the 128mm guns. Those guns could literally have been used for anti-tank weapons and similar things, as well as simply using the steel to produce, say, airplane engines. Are flak guns an effective way to defend a city or not? Or the best way to use your resources? That's one element of the question as I'm taking it. The other element is building a flak tower itself a useful measure of doing it. I built level 1 flak tower or flak things in these provinces here. See some of them here that are likely to be bombed. How do I put this? And this is one thing that I do think the designers of this game got right, is that the air war is essentially an attritional war more than at least from the strategic level. I'm not saying how a pilot flies his aircraft. I'm saying this. It's an attritional war. It's how many aircraft you put up to drop bombs. It's not what formation the bombers should be flying or whatnot. So trying to defend a city or reasonably largish areas. I'm not talking about a single building or something like, or a small factory, but a city with flak guns, I think is a waste. Because I don't think within the technology of the time, even with the coming of the radar guns, that starts to get better. But I don't think in the radar technology of the times, it's an effective way to defend a city. Now, that doesn't mean cities or critical factories should not have flak guns. What to me this means is, like, Dortmund, Essen, this sort of area is a huge industrial center. Having some flak guns in that region forces the enemy to do things differently. Okay, primarily fly higher, so their bombing is less accurate. It's because you are able to hit some of the aircraft. Whether you shoot them down or not is another question. But you're able to damage the aircraft, so you're able to make flying more expensive. So that you should have some flak guns up, whether for day or for night, up shooting at the enemy is a good thing, because it changes the enemy's behavior, and that change in behavior is good. So that is a good idea. But the idea that you can put enough flak guns up, or all of the flak guns that Germany, many thousands, I believe, I don't have the numbers in my head, and then also many thousands of rounds of ammunition are made, that most of it is not reusable. The copper, brass, whatever, casings, the shell casings that get ejected, those can all be recycled, because those are all piling up behind the gun, and they're in the middle of a city or someplace. It's easy to put them on a truck or a wagon and send them back to the factory, whether they can be reloaded or simply melted down and reused, put through the system. Either way, they're perfectly recyclable. I don't think all of the little pieces of steel that rain down over the city after shooting up in the air are going to be collectible enough to recycle. So the idea, I think Germany overspends on flak to shoot down enemy aircraft, because at some point you've already changed the behavior, and you're no longer you're not helping the situation. It would be better to, if it's just a choice of where to send the guns, I would be sending those guns. I'd be mounting them in, or either in towed anti-tank situations or motorized anti-tank situations, and using them on the front, or just simply using the steel and the manufacturing capacity to make artillery shells instead of anti-tank, anti-tank/flak barrels. Or I would be using the steel or something to make aircraft engines to more effectively defend a city with fighters and to shoot down the aircraft more effectively. That, I think, will work better. Now, to the Flak Tower. You have three elements with building the Flak Tower, is my understanding. You have the concrete, you have the steel that goes in, the steel reinforcing, and if you've looked at some of the pictures or videos of people that have crawled through Flak Towers or as they were being built, there's huge amounts of rebar steel in it. That can be that, again, as we talked about earlier, low quality steel. Just needs to be steel, doesn't need to be good steel. But that's still a lot of steel that might be used somewhere better. And then three, the labor to build the Flak Towers. I think some Flak Towers are probably a good idea, some, because they increase your field of fire. So instead of putting a flak gun down in the middle of a city street or in the middle of a square in the city that you only have a limited field of fire, you put them up above the general building levels. And so if they're a little ways to the south of you or a little ways to the north of you, or something is, because I'm presuming they're flying east to west, from where your flak tower position is you can aim horizontally up a little better without having to move the gun. So a limited number, I think, is probably a good idea. Because they increase your field of fire, they protect the crews, they protect, and not because, yes, your crew, your actual guys out there shooting the guns are out in the open, but there's a sort of ammunition trail that people that are feeding the ammunition up to. And also on that element of a flak tower, is my understanding, is if you have we'll call it a 5-inch gun, 5-inch gun on a towed artillery piece here, and it shoots at the end at some target here. Its rate of fire is, let's say, just for a sake of argument, 10 rounds a minute. It can shoot 10 rounds a minute effectively. I'm not saying a gun crew can't shoot faster than that, but sustaining fire, and it may be only 5 rounds a minute, I don't know, but the idea of how fast can you load and effectively shoot that gun at a sustained fire rate, because you're only going to have so many rounds right next to the gun, because you have to sort of separate the gun from the ammo. You know, it could be in trucks or whatever, but men running around is how many rounds a minute can you sustain fire on your artillery piece. But you may take that same 5-inch gun and put it on board a ship. You can probably get 20 rounds or 30 rounds a minute out of it, because the magazine is below. There's hoists that are lifting the ammo right up next to, and sometimes right next to the gun with it. And as time goes on, it almost automatically loads things. But I'm thinking sort of smaller, like 5-inch, not the big, huge, 16-inch guns, 14-inch guns. I'm thinking sort of the smaller things that the projectile can be lifted with one or two humans fairly easily. It's just really easy to constantly feed the ammo into the guns. Well, a flak tower does a similar sort of thing if you look at it. The magazines are in the flak tower itself. They have ammunition hoists that bring the ammunition out, and it literally like just comes out of the wall right next to the gun. And so there's somebody that just sort of picks it up right out of that gun, out of that hole coming out of the wall, out of a little opening there, and sort of almost turns around and takes a couple of steps and drops it into the tray, getting ready to load it into that gun, so that they can keep the rate of fire going on those flak guns better than having a traditional like towed anti-aircraft flak gun that's stuck somewhere, and you have a limited magazine nearby, and once you've shot those rounds out, you've got to move more rounds, so more people, more manpower. So the sustainability fire of a flak tower, my understanding, again, I could have this wrong in details, but I think I'm overall correct on it. The sustainability of flak towers, especially if you look at the British bombing patterns, because they would do a bomber stream. Daylight bombing, the Americans, they want concentration, so you can't see my hands, but you can see my finger. You can picture my fingers sort of overlapping each other, so that they have overlapping fields of fire, and all the aircraft are in tight and close. And so they're doing that, and then of course as they come over and all release their bombs at hopefully at the more or less the right time, but all at the same time, so they're all raining down in a close pattern to destroy the factory. The British are coming over in a stream at night because they're worried about, partially, heavily, them bumping into each other. So they don't want them all there over the target at once. So they come in a general path and a general stream over it, and it may be just over for an hour's period of time, or maybe over 4 or 5 hours period of time. But it's over a sustained amount of time that they're flying over the target. And so if you have anti-aircraft guns that are effectively set up, that you start as soon as the searchlight picks out a target, you start firing at it. Once it goes sort of out of the target frame, you pick up another one, and you want to keep that sort of sustained operational fire. And yes, if it's over a 2 or 3 hour time period, I'm sure there's quiet moments to sort of replace ready ammunition, but you don't know when they're going to be. So your sustained fire rate with a flak tower is probably going to be a lot higher. So whether it's in a tower or some other sort of pre-built fortified ammunition loading magazine system, to me the flak towers sound like a good idea. It's just they get overly big, overly ambitious. They make too many of them. They waste too much resources. Something that should be done in a limited fashion gets overdone by the Germans. I know that's probably more words than you wanted on that, but that's sort of... Yes, air raid shelters, but you could just build air raid shelters. You don't need to build them as flak towers. It's sort of the idea that because you need to have a certain amount of hollow space within the flak tower, and you partially just simply structurally need to build it strong to deal with the recoil of all those guns on the roof. You have to build big walls, but you also, because I don't know how much the Allies target the flak towers, or just simply that they're near targets so they could be bombed. But the Germans definitely look at and think that they may be targets, so they build them in a defensive manner. And so, thanks, Arno. So that they are also set up as bunkers. So yes, they do have a secondary purpose as an air raid shelter, but you can just build air raid shelters. And this goes back to resource management, and it's an important thing. Low quality steel and concrete and the labor to build them. You very well may want to use that to build more efficiently designed air raid shelters, because you can build them lower to the ground. You just need to, you need to build a thick enough roof, obviously, on them and walls to support it, but they don't need to go so high, because I don't think there was a lot of intermediate levels that you could fill with people. So there's probably still a lot of hollow space that isn't effectively used, that had you built purposely designed bunkers, or if it isn't, depending on your terrain, which, Berlin is a swamp that they're building in, but other places may not be that hard of a rock to quickly, or earth situation quickly to sort of dig out, so you don't have to build quite as strong of concrete to resist even direct impacts, let alone nearby, very near misses that you could set up on it. Okay, sure, plunk tactics, very good. That will help us out. Okay, now we need to do the, who to blame for wars. We often talk about who's to blame for World War One. Germany gets the big blame because whether it's the invasion of Belgium or simply invasion of France, when it might have been just to contain to the Balkans kind of thing, Germany gets more blame than I think. I firmly put 80+% of the blame for World War One on Serbia. 80+%. Little bit of percent, particularly for going into what otherwise would have been very, very, very neutral and couldn't give a damn about who won or lost the damn war, would be Belgium. They had, if you stayed out of Belgium's territory, they had no concern over who's fighting. So you brought, Germany. So Germany gets a 5 or 10% blame on spreading the war, because it's their invasion of Belgium that gets Britain into it and expands the war further. So Germany gets a little bit, Austria a little bit, but they were reacting to their, crown prince, the next in line to be the leader of their country being assassinated. So I put them at best 5% blame myself as for doing it. Now they sort of expand the war a bit more than maybe they should have. So, there's a little bit going on with that. But we have to look for the blame for starting World War II. Obviously, the big chunk of it is Germany and its aggression. I don't want to minimize it, but we have Soviet aggression here. We have lots of Soviet aggression. We have, as mentioned earlier in chat, the Soviet, because they already sort of established Poland as existing. I'm not exactly sure. I think in the Versailles Treaty, but because we talk a lot about the Versailles Treaty, but there's also a bunch of other treaties that are done in and around Paris, and it's the I think it's the Saint-Germain Treaty or something that is the one that ends the U.S. War with Germany or something. So there's several other major treaties that are signed right within a few days, weeks of the end of World War One and establishes various elements of the war, including the new boundaries down in the Balkans and other places. But it's the Soviets attacking the Poles. Once the Soviets deal with much of the other Civil War elements trying to conquer Poland. So the Soviets have already had aggression, but Soviet aggression against Poland, and they fully invade Poland, and it is only the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact that gives Hitler the confidence to attack Poland, because Hitler is still a little worried about the Allies coming in the war. Now, he doesn't really think they are, but he's worried about that, and he's worried that if he comes into Poland, well, maybe that would be too much threatening to the Soviets, that if Hitler has this border with the Soviets are going to come to war with them. So it's the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. So I would put, because of the pact, because the Soviets actually invade, though I don't think there's much shooting. The Soviets would have shot at anybody who resists, but I don't know how much. And of course, they do the Katyn Forest massacre, wherever Katyn Forest is, somewhere out here, I presume. Shooting all the Polish officers that they capture and that type of thing. So you have that, and then of course later aggression against Romania and the Baltic states, and of course the Winter War with Poland. So I would put at least 30% or more of who starts World War II's blame on the Soviet Union, at least 30%. So the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, start that. So without that, you don't have World War II as it looked. You might, because Hitler was still planning a round two with Britain and France, though Hitler wasn't planning on owning Paris or owning London. He might have ended up, it might have been a man in the high castle kind of thing, had he succeeded wildly and decided to, I'll just keep these. But it wasn't in his mindset that Hitler never wanted to invade Britain. Combination of reasons, but he never wanted to invade Britain. He wanted to defeat them militarily and go nani nani nunu, we won, and set limits for Britain's naval power and where Britain gets to have its empire. But he never wanted to actually invade Britain. So that is part of the reason no invasion is done and things aren't prepared well, because it was never a focus of his war plans. But he did want a war with them. And so it would have happened, but it would have looked different, I think. Okay, we've got enough forces there, so we're going to send these guys up to here. July or August, I think it's coming out. It's the last season. The last season of it is coming out. When is it coming out on DVD? Oh, I don't know. Don't know. Obviously, it's on Amazon Prime is the people who make it. I don't know if they have ability to do it if it's out on DVD or not. I don't know. But there is going to be one more season of it, and it's coming soon. And I'm remembering as you're saying this, Arno, that you don't have access to it. There are, I'm not going to go in here on a live stream, but there are other ways to get it that are not entirely legal. But we won't go into that. Let's see. We want to do, where is it? Down here. We are working on getting to do airdrop mines. What's the date? I don't like I have to go up to here, all the way up to here, 1940. Okay, so we're in January 1940. So we can come here now. Oh, technology. Is this past 40? Oh, man. It looks to me like a 1940 technology. We're January 1. Technology's 2 years ahead. Acoustic Mines. Oh, man, what are they thinking? You need to have acoustic mines to do aerial mines? What the hell are they thinking? So I think this, well, I don't know whether, I'm honestly not sure whether this is the mod makers or Paradox right now, and if somebody knows. Hey, Roadman I'll just call you Roadman if you don't mind. They want you to subscribe to that. It's Paradox? Okay. What the hell are they thinking? And Podcat should know better than this. Because the Germans were laying non-acoustical aerial mines in 1941, big time, and probably in 1940, because I know they aerial mined the Suez Canal, and I've seen photos of the British flying. I don't know whether it was a Blenheim or some other two-engine sort of bomber type aircraft or something, flying low over the Suez Canal, and it has a big ring under the aircraft that is almost as big around as the wings are, and they're flying it low over it because what they were dropping were magnetic mines in the Suez Canal. They would go sit on the bottom because it's not very deep, to detonate them as they flew over. So they would create a magnetic field. Once use HS to effectively develop blockade Britain. Okay. So I know that, and that was in 41. They were doing that after the Germans were heavily involved in North Africa. I think they were in late 1940. They were dropping magnetic mines via the air along British coastal cities. Not sure about the dates of the aerial mines, but that just sucks. Yes, absolutely right, Roadman. I know they were doing it. Wellington had the mine detector rings. Okay, great, Toyjet. I knew it was something like that. Yes, degaussing. Well, degaussing is a different thing. Degaussing is when you take a metal ship and you're making it non-magnetic. Yeah, as Toyjet's saying. So you like if you want to have a mine sweeper, but they were also degaussing other cargo ships and things. But so they would put, I'm not sure the technology exactly on it, but they would do it so it would not have a magnetic signature to trigger the mines. Where the aircraft that they were flying along, they were trying to make it a very strong magnetic field, so it would blow up something under the water, and normally by the time it would blow up, the low-flying aircraft had already passed, but even then probably the shock wave wouldn't have been that much coming out. So that's what they were doing. So this sucks, because that's 600 days to do this. Oh man, podcast, what are you thinking? What the hell are you thinking? Because here's degaussing, which naval mine avoidance. Well, we'll do that for the fun of it, but I don't know that the Germans did degaussing. Not that they didn't have the technology, just don't know that. That just sucks. So I sort of agree that acoustic mines should be sort of like a 41, 42 or something as first. I don't know the details of it. Drop tanks. Drop tanks, yeah, I don't know when drop tanks were first routinely used. No, yeah, I don't know of any focus for that. It's definitely something that could be done as a national focus to trigger it or something like that. That would be a good idea. Because aerial mines aren't that difficult of a thing to come up with, because they rely on the idea generally of a parachute that, at least some of them do, maybe not all, that will float away or something after you drop it, just to slow it down so the impact isn't very hard. Well, I'm going to focus more on military factory production here. Put some out here in the east. Not saying I have enough oil, but I don't want to. I've done a lot of oil production, and I want to see, because this is to me as much as an experiment as anything else, to see when, where, how much oil is limiting my ability to do things. Okay, yeah, we should probably already be doing some of these. Let's improve our anti-tank upgrades. Hey, unlikely GM. First used in the Spanish Civil War and used widely by the Germans in 40 on the Stukas. Very good. I did not know that. Okay, so the tech does seem correct based on that. Also the AM, also the zeros, B's, also I dropped things. And hello. Good to have you here, Unlikely GM. Okay, good to know. I am not, as you can tell, a great aircraft expert on those kind of things. Okay, Moscow signs the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. Yay. So that will allow us to move ahead with a war. Okay, Danziger War. Oh, we also do need to do this. I didn't know we had to do this. I knew it was one of the paths to get there. Okay, I think our armored forces, as in units, are large enough, so I want to create a new one. Let's find a new leader. Papa Hoth, reckless, planning speed, get wounded in combat. Not an infantry off there. Maybe good infantry. Von Kleist. Wasn't Von Kleist the guy in charge of the Panzer Force, sort of the guy here? Yeah, we'll do Papa Hoth. Okay, and we're going to attach him to... There we go, our Panzer Force. And we're going to create, because we're getting a new... well, no, let's click on modals group here. A new theater. There we go. So now we have a West Theater and an East Theater. I may rename those sometimes. Well, that was sort of his nickname, was Papa Hoth. Nothing beyond Marshall. Yeah, that's it. No, this is what it's limited to. And I don't know of any way to mod it yet by anybody's gone into. Yeah, I really wish they could mod it. I understand that they don't want more than this, but I really wish there was. That's some of the reason. That's why I like playing it. I was actually making more of the Japanese series yesterday, and yeah, we will be producing some more of my Japanese series and then get to other more tanks. And we need more tungsten. Nope, that didn't happen. There we go. There we go. Yeah, no, they're continuing to work on Hoi 4. I know that for sure. Okay, okay, we got this. Still don't like this choice. Don't make me make choices that I don't, which factory output, sort of cheap, fast work versus high quality. That, because those are, but this other thing, I don't like this. This and this are exclusive. I don't like that. I don't want to make that choice. Make the choices seem to be... Oh, here we go. Drop tanks. 91 factory camo, flamethrower, engineer company, reliability plus, or... Yeah. Desert jungle, heat attrition, winter clothing. Let's do winter clothing. That sounds good. Yeah. I hope they do, too. I want them to pump out DLCs. Something like Third Reich Events. That sounds like a good DLC for Hearts of Iron 4. I think everybody would buy a Third Reich Events DLC for Hearts of Iron 4. One that adds a whole lot of immersion to Germany. Sure things, Roadman. And I hope all of you have followed the Twitch channel. And if you haven't also, there's a link below. You can scroll down and follow me over on, or subscribe over on YouTube. Yeah, bit of self-promotion. I'm just waiting for the word. I'll get right on it. Just let me know. Okay. Well, we'll do a little bit of naval expansion as well. I think that will be now. Ooh, 70 days. Ooh. Yeah, it's just in time. That's going to come next. But right now we're going to save this. LP. And we're going to end the episode here. Not the live stream, people, but the episode. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and come back next time. Oh, also like your comments, questions, suggestions. And next time we should be starting the war. I really do hope. But I get distracted talking about things. So see you next time, like I say, for more Hearts of Iron and the war hopefully starting.